She's the witness who, Your Honor said, could testify, or at least overrule my objection, with regard to her witness statement. She's going to say that first, Nikki taking drugs would have been out of character for Nikki, and also her having oral sex would have been out of character. I asked Ms. Richardson if she was going to bring that in. She said, well, not in that way. It's going to be, would you have expected her to do this? Well, I don't believe that's admissible at all, but especially not in that way, because what this comes down to is character testimony, and character testimony has to come in by way of reputation.
Wait a minute. Would you have expected her to have had sex in public? Is that what you mean?
Right. Either way, it can't come in. First, it doesn't matter what it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter what the witness would have expected. If that's the reason, did this surprise you? Who cares if it surprises her? It's only relevant insofar as what she's telling the jury is that Nicole is a chaste person and Nicole is a sober person. That could only come in, assuming it's otherwise admissible, and I don't believe it is, by reputation. What is your reputation in the community for chastity? First, what is the community and all those, the four questions. Do you know her reputation in the community? What community? Do you know her reputation for chastity or for private sex and not public sex? What is it? Good, bad, indifferent. And that's borne out by ER 404A, which basically I believe says it can't even come in. Character, not 404B, character evidence generally. Evidence of a person's character or a trait of character is not admissible for the purpose of proving action and conformity therewith on a particular occasion except, and number one is character of accused, that's not it. Two, character of the victim. Evidence of a pertinent trait of character of the victim of the crime offered by an accused, so that's if the accused wants to offer it, or by the prosecution to rebut the same, or evidence of a character trait for peacefulness of the victim offered by the prosecution in a homicide case, etc., etc. That clearly isn't the case here. And then 405 says basically if it's going to come in under 404A, it has to be in the form of reputation. So I don't believe that this testimony should come in any form. The court's already ruled she can testify to what she sees, but she can't say I was surprised by it or was out of character or some way to get around that.
This isn't character evidence. This is part of the pattern and part of the state's theory in terms of the defendant trying to loosen her up and change her. And it has absolutely no meaning unless it's clear that this was not what Nikki typically did. And it's not to say she's a good person or a bad person because she had oral sex in front of other people, but to say that that's not the way that Nikki typically acted. This was atypical for her. It was a result of the ecstasy and a direct result of the defendant wanting to give her ecstasy so that she would act this way. If the jury is led to think that somehow Nikki has oral sex in the VIP room every time they go out, it has no, he's right, at that point it loses its relevance. It's only relevant in terms of the way the defendant treated her. I don't think that it's trying to show that Nikki was a good person or a bad person, and that's what character evidence is. I don't think it's within the rule. I specifically told Mr. Allen I'm not going to use the word character. The way that I planned to bring it out was something like, would you have expected this of her? Was that a surprise to you? It's not something that Nikki would do, and that's the reason that it matters, because it goes completely to the fact that he was trying to change her into this person who did do that type of thing. That's exactly what he wanted.
One more thing, Your Honor. As far as I can tell from the interview, she only met Nikki on one occasion once before. They went out clubbing the week before, and this was the second time they went out clubbing. So she couldn't even testify as a character witness. I don't believe she knows Nikki well enough or knows her reputation, even if it allowed in then. But the state just wants to get this in through the back door, and it's not admissible.
Mr. Allen, let me ask you a question. Let's assume that the couple was not married. Let's assume they were strangers and met in a bar, and that the male doctored up the female's drink. First time they'd met. Female came under the influence of a narcotic, a mind-altering drug. They went in the back room and had sex. The charge is rape because it is non-consensual sex. Do you think it would be permissible for the state to say, have you ever seen her go out with a total stranger that she just met at a bar without having had her drink doctored and had sex with him in the back room? Would that be admissible in a rape case where the issue was consent?
Your Honor, the way you put it, it sounds like it's relevant, but it doesn't fit within the rules. Because just the fact that this person, or whoever the witness is, never saw her do it before, it doesn't mean she didn't do it before. That's why it has to come in as character testimony. You can't bring in specific non-instances to show that she wouldn't have done this otherwise.
So you're saying that in that instance, you would not, no one be able to testify that this woman who went to a bar didn't repeatedly go into the back room with strangers and have sex?
Well, the defense couldn't bring it in because under the rape shield law, you can't bring in.
I didn't say the defense. The
But
state.
it goes both ways, Your Honor.
Oh, does it?
If the defense can't bring it in that this woman would go around doing oral sex on guys in other circumstances, you can't do it. The prosecution can't open the door that way and say, well, this woman didn't do it before. The state can't bring in what the defense did. But more importantly, this witness, and maybe I'm going off a little bit differently right now, this witness only knew Nikki by meeting her once before. She's basically acting like she knows this person. And even if she did, it wouldn't come in. But they can't even make the foundation that she knew Nikki at this point, other than being with her once before. And I don't think you could make that assumption. And also, it doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter, but it will to the jury, that this person was surprised or this person would not have expected it. That's not the point. And in the rape case, I don't think it's admissible if a person comes in and says, well, no, I really wouldn't expect her to have oral sex with a guy on the first date because I know this person's a good person. That type of evidence would never come in. It's tempting, but it doesn't fit the rules at all.
Thank you.
I'm not trying to say she's a good person. And Stuart, I think, would say that the difference was from even earlier in the evening when she met Nicole.
All right. Counsel, she may testify that as to whether or not the deceased appeared under the influence of drugs. She may testify, and her view was, did it appear that the drugs had something to do with engaging in the sex act. She can testify based on ER 701. Whether or not she had in the past been the type of person who would have shown that kind of affection for her husband in public, we'll leave out. But certainly the jury is entitled to know that it appeared to those present that the drugs played a significant role in that sex act. They can do that on ER 701.
Your Honor, I would take exception to that
Well, you
ruling.
can take exception, but I've made my ruling.
So you don't want to hear any more argument?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, for the record, I would have more argument if the court would allow me.
You might, but I'm telling you it's admissible, and I've heard enough argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next witness that I'd like to bring up is Ms. Strike, Sabina Strike, I believe, Samantha Strike, something like that. Sabrina. And that's spelled S-T-R-I-E-K. She had a relationship with David before David was married. She worked at the club. David bought her a cell phone. David bought her some clothes. David gave her some money. At some point in time, she had sex with David on 2 occasions. It's not clear whether it was before or after she was married. He was married. I understand the court's ruling that if it was after he was married, the court's going to allow that in. If this took place before he and Nicole got married, I think it's irrelevant.
Well, were they engaged?
Yes.
I think it's relevant.
And we're talking about something 4 or 5 years before they got married. It's not even timeless.
Counsel, it's relevant.
Say again?
It's relevant. It's
So,
relevant because the assertion is that his pattern started before marriage, while they were engaged, and continued throughout the entire course of the marriage. Had it been one incident before they were married many years before, I would keep it out. But on balance, if the evidence is that it never stopped, it continued all the way up through almost to the date of her death, then I'm saying it is relevant and it is admissible under 403 because the unfair prejudicial impact does not substantially outweigh its probative value.
And there's a point there I'd like to raise then. She says that the 2 times that they had sex were right after he got married. They got married in 2002. So we're talking about sex 4 years before her death.
I understand that.
But you said if it continues right up
I
to
didn't
marriage.
say with her.
Well, they don't have any other people that I know of that have sex with David after this date of.
Well,
Unless,
Up until the date of the day before Nicole's death, she reportedly related that she thought her husband was having an affair.
which is something different than having
Than
somebody.
having sex?
Well, it's one thing is Nicole's statement that what she thinks. The other thing is having people actually come in and talk about a sex act 4 years before.
Counsel, I told you, if it had happened 4 years before, there was no evidence of anything in the interim, I would keep it out. I think there's sufficient evidence here that his dissatisfaction with his wife sexually continued from when they were engaged all the way up through, effectively, the date of her death. There's evidence of that in inferences. I've made my ruling, sir.
Your Honor, one other witness, a Megan Lovinger, who the state's going to bring in to show that there were some sexual emails back in 2002 between the two of them. Ms. Lovinger denies that there was ever sex between the two of them. As far as I can tell, the state found her when they found an email on David Pietz's computer.
Is that correct, counsel?
Counsel just raised this morning to me, and I told him, I don't think so. Yes, there were emails found on his computer, but she was one of numerous Bally's employees talked to, Autumn Carlson, Brittany Keller, Megan
How'd they get to
Lovinger.
her?
So I think they were interviewing everybody, so I don't believe that's the only way they found her, so.
Let me suggest that if they found her through the computer, the state has already, I think, conceded that the computer search went beyond the warrant.
That's correct, and we're not offering the computer evidence, so.
Well, if you're not
we're-
offering computer evidence, but it was through the computer that you found, through the computer evidence that you found a witness, it's the same thing.
I haven't
So,
had a chance to
Well,
verify.
you better
because
find out. That's
Counsel,
his point, I think.
yeah, counsel just raised it before court, so
I
we haven't had a
understand
chance to
that,
go
but
check
you'll
into
find
that.
out.
Just noticed this morning, and I'd refer the state to page 3 of her interview where the detective says, I think we've got 3 emails that I think show, et cetera, and this is by Detective Pavlovic, who is sitting here, so I think that should be easy to figure out.
Counsel?
I'm not disputing they found
Counsel,
emails.
figure it out.
Okay,
Figure
she's
it out.
testifying this morning, so I guess I'm
We
not
need
sure when we're
time
supposed to do that.
We need time to do a quick search of this discovery downstairs, which we have in a searchable format.
Testifying this morning like first out of the box?
No,
No.
but like,
Fourth,
we have we have an officer and then we have 2
Detective
other
Pat-
And
civilians.
you should have
Detective
time to figure it
Pavlovich
out
is-
before she takes the
Detective
witness.
Pavlovich is going to attempt to find out when
But-
she's first mentioned.
If they found her through the computer evidence, and that was the reason they were asking her about these emails, it's not admissible. Thank you. Is that it, Counsel?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
I have 3 quick issues. The first is that Jim Keller, who has the potential conflict with Mr. Allen as a former client, is present. He's agreed to waive the conflict, and I wanted him to be able to do that on the record.
You may.
Mr. Keller?
Good morning. Do you swear or affirm your testimony in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Sir, I understood, your name is?
James Keller.
And your employment? Juanita?
Bonnie.
Oh, Bonnie Lake Police Department. And I understand you're here to give testimony on behalf of the state. And I also understand that at one point in time, Mr. Allen represented you in some matter.
Yes.
You understand that because he represented you, you could potentially assert that he or his firm should not be able to examine you on the witness stand?
Yes, sir.
Are you willing to waive that?
Yes, sir.
Any confidences that might be involved?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Aaron. That's all we needed on that. You can step back. I want to hand up a material witness warrant for David Wagner, the jail lead, in order to check him in. He's been transported from Idaho.
The same one I signed before? Same, at the same person I signed the extradition, not the extradition, but the travel, transport?
I'll just require that to check him in. Finally, Your Honor, when Detective Keller testifies this morning, there will be a couple of scene photos, and so I wanted to get those out of the way. I have a packet that I want to put in
Let me ask a question. The ones that have Detective Jim Keller on the front are the ones you're proposing to offer?
Correct, through Detective Keller. And then Ms. Carlstrom will be offering some photos this afternoon with Detective Decker, so if you want to do those at the same time, we can.
Counsel, any comment?
Your Honor, I haven't seen the Detective Decker photos yet. With respect to the photos offered through the Deputy Keller, we'll just renew our prior objection that we made in our pretrial motions.
Okay. I'll tell you, the ones from Detective Decker don't show much more. Counsel, the ones you're actually giving the jury better quality photos than these?
We don't have better quality. With Detective Decker, Your Honor, it's about the tracking, and so she's just noting the areas where she found things, and she's going to testify to them. They weren't taken to expect you to be able to see that, but no, unfortunately, they're not.
Yeah, they're, you can see them, other than the fact that they're exceptionally overexposed. In poor quality, there's not much different than the ones, and these are the ones from Detective Keller, Deputy Keller. And I'll pass down the ones that are not being admitted, which can be marked for the record. Trial exhibit not being offered.
And so these are being marked as State's Exhibit 21.
Other than what you said in pretrial, anything else on those latest photos?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Then are we ready for the first witness?
The only issue I wanted to raise, Your Honor, is this is the second day that I've heard that juror 1 is having difficulty hearing, and I'm really wondering, she's very blocked by the juror in front of her. Is there any reason we couldn't swap them? He's taller and
You could
bigger.
swap them, or we could, I didn't hear yesterday, was she?
I was told
Well,
by
I see
your...
is there an assisted listening device?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that for the juror?
What? That juror has it, and I've heard that 2 times now, and I just wanted to make sure we're addressing it. We're trying to speak louder, but I'm concerned.
All right, well, if there's, I will move, I can certainly switch them around if necessary, or we can get her a listening device. Is juror 9, were you here when she got that yesterday? Was that, Terry was here?
Terry was here, I re-got that this morning.
Okay, well, we'll check on
Yeah, juror
all
1 is
that.
the one who I've heard 2 days now.
All right. All right, bring the jury in. may be seated. All right, next witness. Sorry? Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm your testimony in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, Your Honor.
Be seated.
James J. Keller, K-E-L-L-E-R.
And what's your occupation?
I'm an assistant chief for the City of Bonnie Lake Police Department.
Where's Bonnie Lake located?
East Pierce County, Washington.
Before you, well, how long have you been there?
A little over 6 years.
Before you were at Bonnie Lake, did you work for another law enforcement agency?
Yes.
And which was that?
King County Sheriff's Department.
How long were you with King County?
A little over 9 years.
Okay. And what did your duties involved at the time that you left King County? What was your role there?
At the time, I was a patrol deputy.
And what were some of your other assignments when you were at King County?
I was a detective. I worked narcotics, gang enforcement in the White Center, Burien area, and I was a field training officer as well.
Were you on duty on February 6th of 2006?
Yes.
Just for context, I'm showing you State Exhibit 13, calendar February 2006. So that would have been this Monday? I'm sorry, Monday the 6th?
Yes.
At about 1 p.m. or so, did you receive a dispatch from the 911 center?
Yes.
And where were you asked to go?
I was asked to go to the around 1010 South 144 Street.
And where is that?
That's on the east side of the city of Burien, just northwest of the airport, SeaTac Airport.
Can you describe that area in general?
That area, the east side of Burien, is a relatively quiet area. It has a large park, SeaTac Park, which is about a quarter mile east of it. Most of that area at the time was owned, I don't know if it still is, but Port of Seattle property, and it was trailer parks that had been torn down or abandoned.
So would you describe it as a fairly secluded area?
For Burien, yes.
Okay. Was there a lot of traffic in that area?
No.
Okay, but there were paved roads and that sort of thing?
There's paved roads, many paved roads into neighborhoods that had been abandoned, had little or no use.
Okay. Now, the particular area where you were called to report, is that a well-lit area at night?
No, it's a dark area.
And I should ask you, were you familiar with this area because of your patrol duties?
Yes.
So, I'm going to show you. Yes, please.
State's Exhibits 22 and 23 have been
I'm going to show you what's been marked State Exhibit 22. We had a chance to look at this before today, or this morning,
Yes.
and actually before today. Can you tell us what it depicts?
It's a drawing of the area where I was dispatched to, where the body was recovered.
Okay. And would it assist in your testimony to have help? Would it assist in your testimony about this area to be able to reference this diagram?
Yes.
Offer states 22.
There are no objection for illustrative purposes only.
We would like it to be substantive, Your Honor.
I will let him testify from it at this point. Additional foundation is left. Or it's laid later. I'll consider whether it can go to the jury room.
Thank you. So, when you arrived at that area, were you to meet someone?
Yes.
Was that the person who had called 911?
Yes.
And do you remember his name?
I believe it was Wagner.
And what was your understanding from him when you got there?
That he suspected that there was a body in the bushes wooded area, but wasn't exactly sure if it was or not.
If it was really a body?
Yes.
Okay. So did he point the area out to you?
Yes.
And what did you do?
I walked down a small trail in a area that had a bunch of blackberry bushes and discovered what looked like a body.
Now, I'm going to put up states 22, which is the diagram we just referenced. Can I have you step down and sort of stand out to the side, don't get out of your way? Show us what we're looking at there.
This area here is 144, South 144th Street, and this is a dirt road. I believe there's a gate right here. This was a trailer park at one point in time that the Port of Seattle had purchased, and began to destroy and get rid of the trailers, so they were all abandoned at this time. This is a dead-end cul-de-sac. It's a paved blacktop. And then this is a small private roadway that comes up into an area where there was, I believe it was a middle school or an elementary school at one point in time.
And was that in use as well?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So this area to the left, for the record on the diagram, to the left of the cul-de-sac area, the sort of blank, what sort of area was that?
This area here is a small wooded, overgrown, bushed area.
Now, is the location of the body that you came upon marked on that diagram?
Yes,
And where is it?
that's right here.
And you're, for the record, pointing to the little black dot to the left of the cul-de-sac?
Yes.
Okay, you can resume your seat. How far off the cul-de-sac would you say it was?
About 25 yards.
So, when Mr. Wagner pointed that area out to you, what did you do?
I entered the bushes towards where he had pointed.
Okay, and what did you see?
At first I couldn't see anything, so I kept walking through, and then I saw what looked like a body.
Could you tell from a distance?
Not initially. She was underneath, it appeared to be underneath some bushes. Bushes were over the top of her. So I got a little closer.
Okay, and what did you do or see when you got closer?
I walked up to her and squatted down next to her, and with my two fingers, put my two fingers on her leg, and then just confirmed that she was deceased and that it was a body.
Okay. What part of her leg did you touch, do you remember? Did you actually diagram it out at some point?
Yes.
Why did you diagram out where you touched the leg?
I wanted investigators to know that the area that I squatted down and then where I touched her just for evidence or so that they knew exactly what my actions were.
Okay,
State's Exhibit 24 has been marked.
thank you. Now, we'll take a look at that in a second. I would like to have you take a look at some pictures and see if they, oops, let me do it this way. I think I'll get this marked as just one exhibit.
State's Exhibit 25.
Thank you. I'm going to hand you what's in North States Exhibit 25. Could you look through that and tell us what those pictures show?
They show the trail leading up to the body and the body.
Okay. And do those accurately depict what you saw that day?
Yes.
Okay. Offer states 22 or 25? Is that what it is? 25.
Yeah, we'll note our prior objection.
Okay. Now, Detective, is it already called up? The photos are marked in the corner with A, B, C, and D for your reference. So I'm going to call them up on the screen, okay, and we'll walk through them. Okay, looking at photograph number A, can you tell us what that depicts?
That depicts the scene if I were to exit my patrol car and walk to the edge of the paved cul-de-sac looking into the trail that led to the body.
Now we see little orange and yellow things there. What's your understanding of those?
Those were, I believe, marked there from the detectives. And those weren't there when I arrived.
Okay. So those were put there later by investigators?
Yes.
Is that area the area where you saw her body?
Yes.
So if you're standing at the cul-de-sac and you were looking in this direction, again, referencing 22, could you really see anything, or was it hidden from view?
I could not see anything. Just bushes.
So did you get closer?
Yes.
Okay, we're looking at photo B, again with the orange flags and the paper bag. Is that exactly how it looked when you got there, or did it look slightly different?
It looked different. The flags weren't there, and the paper bags, and I believe that's a film or a camera or some kind of box there, plastic box where it's not there. And from what I remember, it was a little, there were some more blackberries above.
And that would have been in this area. I'm pointing directly above the bag.
Yes.
So it appears, this picture, it appears they've been cut away.
Yes.
Now, at that point, when you're about that far away from it, were you able to tell that it appeared to be a body, or could you tell?
Yes.
Okay.
I still had my doubts, though. It was down, kind of, these pictures really don't do it justice. It was kind of down, and there was blackberries over the top. That's why I squatted down.
Okay. So looking at photograph C, that shows some of the overgrowth to the left and the cutaway area on the right. Is that indicative of basically the covering that was there if you look to the left of the photo?
Yes, the covering to the left of the photo was actually on the right in the photo too, when I initially got next to the body.
Now, at this point, when you're this close, what were you thinking in terms of about what it was? Could you tell if it was real, or?
I didn't. That's how I had to squat down and get a closer look because it was that, the blackberry bushes were that thick in the area. And I wanted to make sure that it was a body and that it just wasn't a mannequin or anything or something that looked like a body.
Okay. Now we're looking at photograph D, and what does that show?
That shows, what appears to be an overhead shot of the body.
Is that the position that you found the body in?
Yes.
Did you move any part of her body when you got there?
No.
With regard to, I probably have it, never mind. I have it, thank you. Other than touching the leg, did you do anything to disturb the scene?
No.
Okay, had you been trained in how to leave scenes intact?
Yes.
Okay, and what is your understanding of what you're supposed to do when you first get there?
When I first get there, I have to confirm that that there's a crime, that this is a death investigation, and that there's a body. Once I did that, I exited. I tried to back my way out of it, but it was very thick with blackberries, sharp blackberries and stuff. So I think I turned to my left and then just backed away. I didn't look for evidence or anything like that. I just backed away, and then as the first deputy on scene, my job is to secure the immediate area for evidentiary purposes.
Okay, and then is Major Crimes Unit called to come out?
Yes, I immediately called my duty sergeant and told him what I had found and that I needed major crimes detectives to respond.
Okay. I'm going to hand you what's been marked State's Exhibit 24.
This shows a photo of the body and where I touched her right leg and where I think in the area where I squatted down that day.
Okay, and why did you do that?
I was requested by a detective, but it was so that the detectives knew exactly where, or in the area where I squatted down and what I did when I got there.
Okay. And when you touched the leg, it's going to sound weird, but what were you feeling, what were you hoping to learn?
I just wanted to make sure that it was a real body and just to confirm that she was deceased.
Okay, and could you tell that from the picture?
Yes.
Offer 24.
Would note our prior objection, Your Honor.
Okay, detective, on Exhibit 24, and I'll show it to the jury in a moment. I'm pointing to the calf on picture D. Is that where you touched the leg?
Yes.
And then I'm pointing to sort of the area where the D is. Is that where you bent down, squatted down?
To the best that I remember, right in that area, yeah.
May I publish, Your Honor? Do you know why Mr. Wagner was in that area?
Yes. He had said that he was walking and...
Hearsay.
It is hearsay. Sustained.
Did you have any reason to think Mr. Wagner was involved with the body itself other than finding it?
No.
If I could have just a moment. One more thing, sorry. Mrs. Carlstrom reminded me. I'm showing you what's been marked State's Exhibit 23. Is this a closer-up version of the cul-de-sac with the body?
Yes.
Okay, just for context?
Yes.
Okay. offer 23.
No objection for illustrative purposes unless there's some further foundation laid.
You may show us.
So showing you 23, this is a blow-up of the cul-de-sac, is that correct?
Yes.
And off to the left is where the body was found, is that correct?
Yes.
And again, the area that's marked X6 is the wooded area.
Yes.
I have nothing further, thank you.
Your Honor, I don't have any questions.
You may step down. May call your next witness.
Can you hear okay? Are you having problems?
No, I'm not having problems, but I have a question. I used to work for the Port of Seattle. Is that gonna cause a problem?
No?
I just wanted,
Okay.
because I'm close to that property.
Okay. She said she used to work for the Port of Seattle near that property. I did not construe that to be an issue. Can you hear okay, though?
Yes, it's better now. Thank you.
And somebody has a listening device. Is that working okay?
It is now. I didn't need it before.
Okay.
Ready, Your Honor? The state calls camera member.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm your testimony in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And your name?
Tamara Vanderheiden. Good morning. Comfortable there? You can move the microphone maybe closer to you, whatever's comfortable for you. Okay. Can you state your full name, and why don't you spell both your first and last names for us?
Tamara Vanderheiden, Tamara. Last name is a small VAN space, small DER space, capital HEYDEN.
Thank you. Ms. Vanderheiden, where do you currently live?
Kirkland, Washington,
How long have you lived in that area?
2 years.
What do you do for a living?
Administrative accounting,
How long have you done that type of work?
3 years, 3.5 years.
Did you know Nicole Pietz?
Yes.
How did you know Nicole?
We met in 1998 when we both worked at World's Gym.
I'm sorry, which gym?
World's Gym.
World's Gym? Where was that located?
She worked at the Redmond location and I was at the Auburn.
What were your respective jobs at the gym?
Morning front desk.
Both of you?
Yeah.
Did you develop a friendship with Nicole through that job?
Yes.
Did it go beyond just coworkers?
Yes, it did.
How would you describe your relationship with Nicole?
We were close. She was there for the birth of my second child, so I think it's safe to say we were very close.
And when was your second child born?
In 2001.
So when you met and became friends, did you get together frequently outside of your job?
At first, trying to think back that far.
That's okay. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this first. How long do you think you worked together at the gym?
We never actually, we worked at separate clubs, but I worked at World's until Bally's bought it, so maybe a year or so. I can't remember the exact time.
And at that point, did you go to a different job?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did, and she stayed on with Bally's, and once I left, I would see her more, because we weren't talking on the phone at work anymore.
So the relationship continued to develop and get closer after
Yes.
you were done with the gym?
Yes.
Okay. And let me ask you this. At some point, did you meet a man who would later be your husband?
Yes.
When did you meet him?
When?
Yeah.
I think it was in 1998, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Shannon Brunson.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, you're misunderstanding me. I'm asking if you met her husband.
Oh, I thought you said my husband,
No,
and I
no,
thought
I'm
that was a little bit
sorry.
odd. Sorry. Dave, I met
Yeah.
August of 2001. No, August of 2000.
Okay, and what was the occasion, or was there an occasion?
Wedding, my wedding.
Your wedding, okay. And were you aware of whether they had been dating for a while prior to your wedding?
I was under the impression that my wedding was like their second or third date. They had just started.
And at some point, did they end up getting married?
Yes.
When Nicole began dating the defendant, well, actually, is he present in court today?
Yes.
And can you point him out, please?
Right there.
When Nicole began dating the defendant, did you continue to get together with her, just you and her?
We did a few times, yeah.
Did you and she and your husband and Dave ever all get together?
Yeah, we did a few times.
How often do you think that would happen, where all four of you got together?
I don't know precisely. I mean, some images pop into my head that I completely forgot about, so I don't know. I mean, we done dinner a few times. She'd made dinner, go over there with my kids. They came to, like, my son's birthday, just,
That kind of thing?
yeah,
Is it fair to say that you were closer probably to Nicole than to the defendant?
absolutely.
Is there a time that you stopped seeing him as much, or did you continue to see him throughout the entire time you and Nicole were friends?
I'd say that we originally, when we would go out to dinner, it would be the four of us, and did that a few times, and then it would be Nicole that would just show up. And we pretty much, I think, only saw him like when we would go over to their place, or they came over to like my son's birthday, or I think we went to go see them in Bothell.
Can you describe Nicole, and by that I mean physically?
She was short, beautiful blue eyes. I would describe her as petite.
Did she tend to wear a lot of makeup?
No.
More natural type of
Yes.
appearance? What about her clothing? How did she generally dress, if you know?
She wasn't one to display herself. She was dressed more on the conservative side.
How conservative, or can you elaborate on that?
No, nothing low cut.
Okay.
Yeah,
But not buttoned up to the top collar? either?
exactly.
In your experience with Nicole, was she the kind of person who would go out sort of to clubs and partying a lot?
You know, I had kids, so I never did that.
Character evidence, lack of foundation for awareness of this.
I think she's about to say she doesn't know. Where goes the foundation? Do you know?
Let me ask a few more questions to establish foundation, Your Honor, if we can. Ms. Vanderhiden, did you have occasion to go out with Nicole, or were you home dealing with your own life?
Yeah, I pretty much had a home life.
So let me ask you this. In the last couple of years that Nicole was around, did you see her as much as you had previously?
No.
Did you mostly talk on the phone?
Yes.
How often do you think you talked on the phone?
I honestly can't say. I didn't keep track.
Was it at least once a week or less than that?
It probably varied. We did phone, email. She came down to visit me for lunch. We would meet for coffee after AA.
Did you have occasions to observe how Nicole acted around her husband?
Yes.
Can you describe what that was like?
It was, I mean, it was
Objection
normal.
irrelevant.
It was normal.
Hold on, did the court roll? Go ahead.
Yeah, it was normal. I mean,
Did you see Nicole asking her husband for approval on
no.
occasions?
Well, I never actually was in a room. There was only one occasion that
Tell me about that.
she'd lost a lot of weight. She was talking about how her clothes didn't fit her anymore, and I told her that I wanted to take her shopping and buy something because she didn't have the money to go out and spend. And I told her, let me buy you a present. So she asked if she could, she said, let me ask Dave first. She got up the phone, called me back a few minutes later, and said that
Overruled?
Said that Dave said no.
Did you get the impression that she asked for his approval on things like that other times, or was that the only occasion you recall?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Rephrase the question.
Were there other occasions where you would do things with Nicole where she would call her husband?
Call? No, but I know that our visits were always short.
And why was that?
She had to get home.
And those were visits where you were getting together in person?
Yeah, after coffee.
Did you ever notice Nicole wearing a retainer in her
No.
mouth when you would see her? Were you aware of her addiction history?
Yes,
Is that something she talked about with you?
yes.
To your knowledge, did you ever see her drink or use drugs?
No.
When you would get together with Nicole, would you drink around her?
No.
Why not?
I didn't feel it was appropriate. There was only one occasion, and that was the day I got married, and she told me I had to.
Do you recall when you would have last spoken to Nicole before she disappeared?
2 weeks prior?
And that would have been in January sometime?
Yeah,
And was it a normal conversation?
yes,
Were you aware, Ms. Matterhaden, of the back issues she was having?
yes.
Did you have any reason to think that she's having any particular difficulties with the pain pills related to those back issues?
Absolutely not.
How did you find out that she was missing?
I received an email.
When do you recall receiving that?
It was probably sent an hour or two before I saw it, but I checked my email around midnight or so, and that's when I read it. It was probably between 11 and midnight.
I'm going to show you what's been admitted as State's Exhibit 2, which is a calendar of January 2006.
Uh-huh.
Does this help you to know when you're talking about receiving an email?
It was January 28th
Okay.
Saturday.
You think around midnight that night?
is when I opened it, but it was probably, I don't know exactly when it was sent.
Who did it come from?
Came from Nikki's email, but it was from Dave.
And what did it say, basically? Not word for word, but what was the gist of it?
The subject line said, "This is Dave, please read, urgent, please read." It said, "I have not been seen or been able to contact Nikki since the night before. They were supposed to meet friends at their old apartments for dinner. They have a dog the same age as their dog, Boomer, and she was supposed to meet them there with Boomer. She didn't show. The friends had tried to contact her. Her phone appears to be turned off. When he got home, there was in her bathroom an empty bottle of Percocet. He wasn't sure if it was there in that morning or not because he uses they have 2 baths now and they use a separate bath. And that was also in the email, that the bottle had been filled on Wednesday with 56 pills. And it went into, I believe, like, I don't like having to contact you guys this way. I don't have any of your phone numbers. Was she at the meeting today? Has anyone heard from her? Said, as far as I know, nothing is upsetting her. We haven't been fighting. And I was under the impression her back was doing better. I contacted the police. There's been no accidents, and her car has not been impounded. It says, please reply, and it gave us contact information.
So all those details were in that first email you got?
Yeah.
Did it go to multiple people, not just you?
It went to 4 people.
What did you do upon opening that and seeing that email?
I called Dave right afterwards.
And what happened during that call?
I called him and, told him it's Tamara, blah, blah. He basically repeated what the email said and then added, a little bit more information.
Do you recall what he added? Or?
Yeah, he goes, I was just talking to my dad the other day. He was been concerned about her. At first she had me holding on to her bottle of pills, and then she started to get more comfortable and left them in the bathroom, and then she started carrying them with her.
And that was him telling you that on the phone?
Yeah.
Anything else you recall from the phone call?
No, it's pretty much, I think, wrapped it up that, I was going to contact him later or
Were
call
you
if there's
were you
anything.
concerned when you called him?
Yes.
How did he sound?
Mellow. I mean, it was late.
Could you tell that he sounded worried, or could you tell?
It was just kind of a mellow, casual, no high stress, if that's what.
Did you at some point go see him?
The following Tuesday.
And so would that have been the 31st?
Yes.
How did that come about, that you did that?
I wanted to go over there and help, look for her, do whatever I could.
Had you had any contact to know she was still missing before you went over Tuesday?
Yeah, I think I probably called him quite a bit Sunday, Monday,
And did you talk to the defendant more on those calls?
just checking in.
And any more information provided during those?
No, not really.
What happened when you went over on Tuesday?
Well, I went over there. Do you want the details of showing up? And
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess, first of all, what time approximately do you think you went over on Tuesday?
I went into work that morning, so it was probably late morning, because it would have been a drive up from Federal Way to Linwood at around 11-ish or so. I don't.
And was anybody else there besides the defendant when you went?
I think Gail and Rod were out driving around talking to people, asking if they'd seen her car and stuff in the area, and I think his mom was there and she was out walking the dog when I first arrived.
What was the defendant doing when you first got there?
He's putting together his stereo equipment.
Did you talk to him about what was going on?
Yeah.
How was his demeanor at that point? You had described how he sounded on the phone. How was he when you came that Tuesday?
The same, mellow, calm.
Did he express worry about Nicole during that visit?
Verbally, yes. I mean, the words. But it was a mellow and calm demeanor.
Okay, so his demeanor didn't seem to match his words? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Was he doing anything related to attempting to find Nicole when you got there?
He was mapping out search areas. He said he wanted to print them out and give them to people.
And by search areas, what do you mean exactly?
He had a map up on the computer, and I know he was like copying and pasting like search areas to give to people, like you search, this area here, you search this area here.
Do you know what areas he was mapping out?
Honestly, I don't.
What else happened during that visit?
Well, I think he left for a little while with Gail. They went to meet a detective. They came back. I might have things out of order, but I know one point in time he'd gotten a phone call from somebody from her work. They said that they weren't supposed to do this, but they looked at her phone records to see where the last call from her phone was, and looked up what tower it was pinged off of, and gave Dave the information, the phone number that she called, or the phone called, and the address at the tower.
So let me ask you this. Did Dave tell you what he had learned from this call he was getting?
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, it was a phone call that happened when? The last phone call?
Honestly, he had the phone in his hand. I just assumed it was right then. I don't know if it was information and he was just sharing it with me then, or I just assumed he was holding the phone. It happened then. I can't tell you for sure.
And I'm going to talk about that a little more, but first I want to ask, he was getting information about a call that Nikki had made, or her phone had made?
Yeah.
Okay. And he was being told what about the tower?
The address of the tower.
The tower that phone call used?
Yeah, that it pinged off of, and Dave said that the towers cover a 3-mile radius.
And he was just receiving this information as you were there?
I believe so. I mean, like I said, he had the phone in his hand when he was telling me still, so I assumed he just talked to the person.
And did he tell you what time he was being told or what day he was being told this phone call was?
No, again, I just assumed it was happening right then.
And did he talk about where he was or anything about him in relation to this phone call?
Yeah, I can't remember the time that they said the call came in, but it was to his club, and he said he knew exactly where he was when the call came in. He was in the pool area, and there's no intercom system.
So whenever this call came in, he was saying he was at work?
Yeah,
Okay. And he was telling you he knew exactly where he was at the time this call came?
yes,
And he said pool area with no intercom?
yes.
Why did he talk about an intercom?
I'm assuming because if she would have called, they would have tried paging him.
And this was Tuesday you were talking to him?
Yes.
And do you recall if the call he was referencing was one he said came in on Saturday?
Again, I don't.
Okay.
Oh, wait, the call that came to his work, yes, Saturday.
Okay.
It was mid or late morning.
Okay, so this is the call he was saying he knew exactly where he was when that came in.
Yes.
And I guess, was this information he was given to you right after he was on this phone call?
Again, I can't tell you for sure that phone call happened right there. That's just my assumption, but yeah.
And so he was offering up to you an explanation at that time?
Yeah.
When you were, was he reacting in any way to that information that her phone had made a call on Saturday?
Not really. I know went into his office and he looked up the address of the tower to see where it was located on a map.
And where was that located?
It was in Seattle.
Do you know if it was downtown Seattle? Do you recall?
The only details I remember is it was within the radius, 3 miles was in the radius of his work.
Okay. And did he seem excited to hear about this?
I didn't really notice anything.
When you were there on that Tuesday, did you have any conversations with him about any financial transactions he was learning about?
There was one that posted in his account, I think, on Monday that he wasn't sure what it was from.
And do you know, was that in a particular area that he was noting that?
Honestly, I don't remember if he knew right then or if it was when we went to the bank, but it was a transaction in Kent, in the South End.
And did he talk about whether that was something that he had done or an area he had been?
He wasn't aware of it. The bank had said that it was ran and posted on Monday, and then he later found out it was something that happened previously that didn't post until Monday.
Did he talk to you about an occasion when he might have been in the South End for something?
I know there was something about a couple weeks prior for going to one of the clubs or a job interview for a promotion or something.
That he might have been at the South End for a job interview?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the only time, he could remember recently that he'd been down there.
Was he attempting to remember why there might have been a transaction in the South End?
Yeah, he was trying to, I think he was trying to figure out, more importantly, how this transaction happened, and because he didn't recall what it was.
And I'm sorry, I just want to understand, was he saying he had been in the South End for some sort of interview?
Yeah, a couple weeks prior. I think it was an interview or something to do with work.
When you were talking to him that Tuesday, did he talk about the last time he had actually seen Nicole?
Yeah.
What did he tell you? What's your understanding of the last time he had seen her?
My understanding is that he came home from work late. She was already in bed. I think he said that she woke up, asked if he wanted her to make something to eat, and he said no, and she went back to bed.
Did he tell you what he thought might have happened to her and why she was gone?
It was heavily implied that it was a drug issue.
When you say heavily implied, what do you mean?
Well, when I was over there, pointing out, her bottle was empty, and when he was looking at the tower and where it was located with his work, I'd made the comment that, she was probably on her way to see you, and he directed me off to the side of the screen and said, oh, this area over here, she could buy drugs anywhere over here.
Okay, and the screen, is that the screen?
They get a screen with the map on it.
Okay. And he was talking about an area near his work.
Yeah.
Now, did you offer to assist or suggest putting up flyers in any particular area when you were over there?
The only thing I could think of is when I left, he'd asked if I would go down by the church and put up flyers or drive around and look and see if her car was there, 'cause since I live in the south end, and it's in the south end, and I said, well, shouldn't we be looking in Seattle? And he was kind of confused, like, why would we do that? And I said, well, we had the last known contact there, we should be looking down there.
And that was the phone call you're talking about from your phone?
Yeah.
And he seemed surprised that you would suggest that?
Yeah.
Did you offer to help in any other way to locate Nikki with anything else?
After the memorial, I should say, after the car was found, I went and helped put up flyers with information, looking for anyone that's seen anything and offering the reward.
Did you do anything before that involving, offer anything involving a helicopter?
Oh, yeah, I did. I don't know if it was the night that after I'd gotten, I don't know if that was Tuesday or Wednesday, it was in the evening, I'd called around and gotten prices on helicopters I was thinking someone to fly the route that she would have taken to Renton, and I got a price. I called Dave and told him that I would pay for it, is it something you want to do? I can't remember the specific details of the conversation, but I know that he'd said something, I want to say a brother or something, a family member was there that used to be a cop or something, and then he had said Gail was there. I remember thinking, I had wanted to talk to Gail and I wanted to ask for her number, and I didn't. And there was a couple other people, family members, and he was like, let me talk to them and I'll get back to you. And it felt like hours, but it probably was only 30 minutes or so that I called back, and he said that they decided not to do it.
Did he say he'd spoken to family members?
Yeah, he basically said we decided not to do it.
And was this around the same time that Tuesday, the 30th, that you thought you'd gone by there, that maybe you called this?
Yeah, it was after I'd gone there, but I'm just not clear on which night. It was before she was found.
And you mentioned hiring a helicopter to drive maybe the route she'd gone to Renton. What was Renton? Why was Renton important to you?
Well, that was, she was supposed to be heading there for her birthday meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Bennigan. I don't have any other questions for you right now.
Good morning, Ms. Vanderheiden. Is it Vanderheiden?
It is hiding.
You testified on direct examination about David learning about the location of the cell tower to which this phone call from Nicole's phone connected, correct?
Yes.
And when you received this information, David had already gotten off the phone with the person who provided that information, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
You weren't sitting there when a phone call came in.
No, like I said, I just assumed it just happened because he had his phone in his hand.
Okay. And so this is information that David volunteered to you about the conversation with the person at Singular about the cell tower location,
Yes.
correct? You weren't grilling him or asking him which tower the phone call connected to.
No.
And there was nobody else in the condo at that point who was grilling him for this information, correct?
No.
This was information that he...
Correct, no. You see the issue? You didn't listen to the question and listen to the answer. You asked the question, said correct, and she said no, which means it's not correct. But I think what she meant to say was it was correct. She was agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so all I'm suggesting is that clearly the record you just created will be the exact opposite of what you thought you were getting.
Okay, I apologize, Your Honor.
No, it's okay. I just, it's the phrasing of the question and the response. I think the jury understood what her answer was, but certainly if you read it, it will not come out that way.
This is information that David volunteered to you.
Yes.
And he volunteered to you that he had learned that the location of the cell tower was on Stewart Street.
I can't remember the specific location, but yeah, he volunteered the information.
And he made it clear to you that that was near his place of employment.
Yes.
And in fact, you were present when he was looking on a map to figure out where the cell tower was.
Yes.
You didn't ask him to go plug it in on a map, did you?
I don't think I did. I didn't have the address. I wouldn't have.
And there was nobody else in the condo that was pestering him to plug this information into a map?
No.
And so you watched him as he actually mapped it out and determined that it was close to his place of work, correct?
I can't tell you that I stood there every second, but I know that after the fact, I was looking at the map, yeah.
And you even suggested to David that perhaps Nicole was going to see him.
Yes.
You testified on direct examination that David verbally expressed concern for Nikki's well-being. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this was in the course of the week when she was missing and when you were interacting with him up at the condominium, correct?
Yes.
During the time that you were up at the condo, there were other family members of David's who were at the condo.
Yeah, I believe his mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever see his dad there?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think his dad had been up the previous day or something, but I know for sure his mom.
But you were aware that there was family there that whole week?
Yes.
David's family?
Yes.
And you mentioned that there was a brother or a stepbrother of David's who was a
I
former...
thought you had said brother, yeah.
And that person was a former police officer?
Yeah, or some law enforcement. And that was the only reason why it stuck out in my head.
And aside from the issue of mapping out the location of the cell tower, David was actually mapping out areas for people to go look for Nikki, correct?
Yes.
And he was printing out maps and handing them to people to go out in the community?
No. No, he never printed them while I was there.
Okay.
Yeah, he was putting them on a memory stick, and he was going to take them somewhere and have them printed out.
Okay. But he was doing something with maps in order to assist people in
Yes.
determining where to go look for her.
Mm-hmm.
You indicated that you were aware of Nicole's addiction history and so forth.
Yes.
And Nicole had expressed to you that she was scared of taking pain pills.
Yes.
She was afraid that she would start to like them,
Yes.
and she was worried that she might slip up.
Yeah, that's why she was scared to take them.
You testified on direct examination about this bank transaction that you and David investigated. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And David was doing some research as to possible postings on the bank account that he and Nicole shared. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when he learned that there was a transaction in the South End on Monday of the week she was missing, the two of you actually drove to Kent to...
No. We never drove to Kent. We drove to a bank nearby. We never, yeah.
So, but the two of you got in a car and
Yeah,
drove
drove to the bank, and he asked the bank information about the transaction.
Okay. And when you and David were investigating this, wasn't David very excited?
It was the first time that I'd seen him worked up about something. I wasn't sure whether it was a positive or negative, but there was definitely some excitement there.
Yeah. Haven't you previously described it as David being very excited? Haven't you previously described it as David being very excited?
Yeah, just, amped up.
Okay. And this information was, at that point, the first information, other than the cell phone call, that, might make some connection to Nikki's activity during that week. Is that correct?
Yes, well, yeah.
Ms. Vanderheiden, you and Nikki were very close friends, correct?
I'd like to think so.
You never remember Nicole wearing a diamond tennis bracelet.
I know I'd seen it. She'd showed me after she'd got it. But I'm on as far as a regular basis, I don't know. But I do know she pointed it out after she bought it, or after Dave bought it for her.
Okay. Do you remember being interviewed by detectives in 2006? February of 2006?
Somewhat, yeah, for the most part.
Okay. This would have been February 9th, 2006. It was a Detective Kathy Decker.
Yes.
May I have this marked, please? Defendant's Exhibit 26 is
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
a... May.
Ms. Vanderheiden, I'm handing you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 26.
Okay.
Does this look like, when you've had a minute to just look over the front page there, does this look like a transcript of your 2006 interview with Detective Kathy Decker?
Yes.
And if you could turn to page 22, please. And before I have you look down at that, you didn't know anything about any bracelets that Nicole wore?
What I told her then and what I've remembered are different.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to look down at page 22 of the interview, about halfway down,
Uh-huh.
do you see that one of the detectives asked you, do you remember a bracelet?
Let's
And
see.
you said, I can't, I want to say a cross, but that's probably because I have a cross.
That was referring to a necklace.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they asked you, do you know about about bracelets? And you said no.
No, I mean, bracelets is kind of general. If they would have said sparkly diamonds, it might have stuck out a little bit more. It's not something she wore on a regular basis that it would have been ingrained in my brain.
Well, then they asked you again, did she wear anything typically? And you said no.
You know, I've discovered that this is kind of like gibberish, and it doesn't necessarily go in the flow of the conversation because, we're jumping back and forth while giving the interview. So,
So is it your testimony now that you do remember something about a bracelet?
well, I remember seeing her when she showed me the tennis bracelet when Dave first bought it for her, but as far as when they're asking about it and saying bracelet in general, I'm probably picturing something that she'd wear on a daily basis.
So is it your testimony today that Nicole showed you the bracelet and told you that Dave had given it to her?
Yeah,
Do you remember being interviewed by detectives in 2012?
yes,
This was also Detective Kathleen Decker.
yes.
May I have this marked, please? Defendant's Exhibit 27.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Ms. Vanderheiden, I'm handing you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 27. Does this look like
Yes,
a transcript of your 2012 interview with Detective Decker?
yes.
If you would please turn to page 23.
Okay.
About 2/3 of the way down, you were asked, were there any other jewelry items that you know of that she had received from Dave? And you say no.
You know, I'm not going to remember everything when I give statements. Things do pop into your head afterwards. It was just something that I do remember, but obviously at the time wasn't my main focus.
Okay, so both in 2006 and 2012, when you were asked about jewelry that you remember Nicole wearing, you never mentioned a bracelet given to her by David.
No, I did not.
Nicole was not a vegetarian, as far as you know.
Not that I know of.
In fact, you've seen her eat meat on occasions.
I honestly can't tell you yes or no. We did have meals together, but
Okay, well, haven't you previously described an incident where she made some pasta and there was meat in it?
yeah, I remember the sauce. That's what sticks out in my head. As far as the rest of the stuff, I can't remember now. That was too long ago.
But you don't remember her specifically taking meat out of a particular meal or something
No.
like that?
No.
Ms. Vanderheiden, you testified on direct examination about this helicopter that you were looking into in
Yes.
efforts to try and find Nikki. Were you aware that it would have cost, like, perhaps several $1,000s to do this?
I can't tell you what the quote is now. I don't remember, but I had a quote, and I just received my tax returns back, and so I was going to pay for it.
Okay, which helicopter company did you contact?
This is back in 2006. I don't know. I talked to several, and there was one guy that I ended up talking to where he was nice, and I was going to call him back. He said he'd be on standby and wait for my call.
Did you tell him what the purpose of your inquiry was for?
No, I think I pretty much told him, honestly, a long time ago. I don't think I told him, I can only speculate what I said. I have to assume I probably told him that I have someone that I know that's missing and we want to fly the route.
Did you tell him that you wanted to fly the I-405 and the I-5 corridors?
I think that I wanted to fly the route, focusing more on the south end.
Okay, south end, like Bury and Renton areas?
Renton.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't tell you precisely. I mean, this is 2006.
Sure. Did you have any discussions with him about airspace limitations or areas that you wouldn't be able to go in the south end, like Renton?
No.
Okay. Did you have any conversations with him about how close to the ground you would be able to fly?
This was 2006. I don't remember. I didn't write things down.
Was there any discussion of using like infrared cameras or special telescope equipment to be able to look from the sky down?
I can't honestly give you an answer on any of these questions.
Okay. The general thought was just that the helicopter would fly and you guys would look for Nikki or her car?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. Gates?
Matter of fact, I want to talk to Dave about the helicopter that council was just asking you about. You called and spoke to Dave about this
Yes.
and told him you were willing to pay for a helicopter to do this search.
Yes.
And did he tell you that he would check with Nikki's family and get back to you?
He said the family.
And you knew Nikki's family was there?
And yeah. He had mentioned, because in the conversation, it stuck out in my head again, because I had wanted to talk to Gail, but I didn't want to I didn't ask him for her phone number.
And when you called him back, he said that they had decided no.
Yeah, they or we. It was a group decision.
So you got the impression he had talked to family before you talked to him?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions, thank you.
You can be set down.
Your Honor, wait just 1 second, please.
Vanderheiden, David never actually told you, though, that he was going to or that he had talked to Gail or Rod Schneider about the helicopter. Is that correct?
He never said specifically, I'm going to talk to these people. I know they were there, and he said, I'm going to talk to the family.
Well, didn't he actually say, let me talk to my family and I'll get back to you?
It was kind of a general term,
Okay.
the family.
If you want to turn to page 10 of the 2012 interview. About 3/4 of the way down the page, or 2/3 of the way down the page, you were telling the detective in this interview about the helicopter.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
And what you said about what Dave's response to you was, let me talk to my family and I'll get back to you. Isn't that what you told the detectives?
If it's typed there, it is. Wording,
But you never told the detectives that he claimed he had talked to Gail about it.
I did. I was under the impression that he had because she was there.
Okay, but you didn't tell the detectives that in this portion of the interview that we're looking at.
I don't know. I'd have to read through it.
Well, you're welcome to read through it there.
It says that it does reference Gail being there, and she was there, and I said, yes, she was there.
Okay, but David said he was going to talk to his family about it.
I wanted to say it was a general term.
But what your transcript says is
Yeah.
my family.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions, John.
You may step down if you're excused. Take a morning recess for the jury room. Be seated. Counsel, there was an objection to some testimony Ms. Vanderheiden gave concerning her telephone or discussions with Nicole, where Nicole called David and asked if she could buy clothes. And you objected to her saying that David said no. I allowed that in for Nicole's state of mind, not for whether or not David actually said no to her. So if David didn't say no to her and never even spoke to her, what it would indicate is Nicole's statement to Ms. Vanderheiden that she felt some level of control by David, even regardless of whether David said it or not. So it's not for the truth of what she said, but for her state of mind as to her feeling of control by her husband. So it's not offered for the truth in the matter asserted.
Understood, Your Honor.
Or it's not let in for the truth in the matter asserted. There was no request for limiting instruction. I suspect at this point you don't give a limiting instruction.
Your Honor, I guess I would just make clear that our position is her state of mind regarding whether or not it was a controlling relationship is irrelevant. The 404B evidence has been admitted to show David's dissatisfaction with the marriage, but her state of mind is irrelevant.
Her state of mind as to whether he controlled the marriage, the mutual dissatisfaction, the arguments, all goes the same thing. So all I'm suggesting is it doesn't matter whether David actually made the statement to her or not, for the purpose for which I let the evidence in. I recognize that if she's relating something that he told her over the phone, it's hearsay if offered for the truth. If it's not offered for the truth, then it's not hearsay, and it may be offered for some other reason. That was the reason that I did not sustain the objection. All right, we'll be in recess.